Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker-Hagan, and I'm so delighted to be here with you another Tuesday. My co-host, Dr. J.R. Thicklin, will be on momentarily, but tonight we're talking about the path to victory. We just came out of an election and the Democrats control the Senate. Well, that means that people want democracy. It's like it's so much going on, so much controversy, so much disdain in the world that people want a balance. We have to have a balance. We have to have a balance in our mind and our souls and our spirit so that we can move on to the next level in our life. There is greatness inside each and every one of us, and we have to be focused and precise to know what that is that we want to accomplish in our life space. God has been good to all of us, and new mercies we see each and every day. It's so powerful and so um, glorious to wake up each day and know that there's purpose within us. So many people are going through depression because of the fact that they don't know who they are or whose they are. But I want to say to you that God was so mindful of you to tap you this morning to raise you up. That means He has need of you because there's somebody waiting for your voice to speak into their lives. There is somebody waiting on you to be in alignment with the purpose that God has for your life. This thing that you're going through is just a temporary setback. It is all temporary. So just keep pushing through and keep pressing through because you will have the victory at the end. The only ones that don't have the victory are those that wind up giving up at the end. I was speaking to some individuals that was with us at the Les Brown training this past weekend. I had met some amazing individuals, and it was just so inspiring to see individuals transform before me, to see someone that wanted to become a speaker that would say to themselves, okay, this is where I want to be. I want to be a mouthpiece. I want to get that microphone and I want to transform lives. It was so inspiring to see individuals that came up afraid and timid and not sure of their story because everybody has a story. If you've lived any type of life, you have a story. You have something to say because, guess what? When you have gone through situations in your life, you're able to speak into individuals and point them into the right direction so they won't have to make that same mistake that was made prior. So, I was so inspired this weekend to see individuals that transformed just before me. And to for them to say, I want to be able to speak and empower children. I want to be able to inspire women. I want to be able to transform lives not only in the US but internationally. We had people that came from Canada, that came from London, Hawaii. It was just so magnificent to see people from all walks of life wanting to make a difference in individuals' lives. And I was so inspired by that. I have my co host, Dr. J.R. Thicklin, that will be joining us right now. Dr. J, how are you?
I am doing wonderful, Dr. Val. I'm excited. I really regretted missing the empowerment that happened this weekend. I was being empowered another way there, visiting my two youngest grandsons and my son and his family
That was amazing.
in Cleveland, and it was just absolutely amazing. But I thought about what was happening here with you all, and what an incredible time. I got a chance to see, I think, a couple of pictures but I could tell that people left there not the way they came. They was reignited, they was rejuvenated, purpose connected with destiny. And that's kind of where we have to be in life. When purpose and destiny really connect with one another, it creates a combustion of its own. It creates a new fire, a new energy, a new outlook. And that's really the path to victory, is when we can connect so many times. And I borrowed this saying from you. And when you said that when we're in alignment with our assignment, there's nothing that can stop us. And part of the problem, we got to know this from just driving cars or from riding bicycles. When we're out of alignment, we pull one way or the other unnecessarily. It's a gravitational pull that shouldn't be happening, because the fact we ought to be able to be direct center and being able to drive. But when we are in alignment with our assignment, the whole universe opens up and says, welcome. When we're in alignment with our assignment, everything about us begin to say, look, I accommodate you here. I met you. I've been waiting for you to get here. And I'm telling you that's the powerful thing about that. So what can I say? I just know that there are a lot of people that are inspired, that are moved, that are motivated, and who are now looking at the end of this year differently than they were before.
Yeah, it was very, very inspirational this weekend. I can't begin to tell you. And I'm tired. I'm running on fumes. I forgot to even do the intro coming into the show. I was like, oh, I forgot. But anyway, I said we're live now.
Well, hey, it shows that we are human, right?
I said, oh no, here I go. And I was like, I forgot to click the button. I went live and didn't set up, but it's okay, because there is a path to victory. We go through so many situations in our lives. And as I said, there's so many people trying to find their footing. And unfortunately, more people than not are taking the low road because of the fact that, they give up. They give up instead of taking the high road and said, this isn't about me. This isn't about what I'm going through. This is about the greater vision. That's what vision is, seeing yourself further ahead than where you are right now, because right now is temporary. People, when your stomach is growling, you're hungry, it's a temporary thing.
Absolutely.
I know, raising my children and having to, cook dinner for them and make it stretch. There were times then I didn't eat just to make sure they ate, but it was temporary.
Temporary. Yes.
It's a temporary setback. And we will go through those times in life, because, it's just a phase that we'll go through. But it is also a learning experience, because I had to figure out why I wind up in that situation and what were the lessons to be learned so that I wouldn't go through it again. And this is why we go through down periods in our life, is so that there's a lesson to be learned. And once we raise out of that, then we're able to communicate that to individuals that may be going through it. Because, when you're in the middle of a situation or circumstance, let me tell you something, Dr. J, when you're in the thick of it, the inner me, that mind inside, that inner spirit will tell you you're the only one. There's nobody else in the whole
sense of
world
isolation
that has ever gone through anything like this. It's just you.
Yeah.
And then the enemy of the mind will say, it's just you. There's nobody else. So why don't you just give up? Why don't you just throw in the towel? But that is not what you should do. You should hold on and fight to the end, because the greater reward is at the end. That's where the victory coming. There's a path. Everything is a journey. Wherever you find yourself in life, you made an appointment to be there. You didn't just show up there. It was a path. It was a journey getting there. But what are you going to do on that road, on that journey, to cause that fork in the road where you'll go right instead of left? That's the lesson that has to be learned in the midst of it.
Absolutely. And you said something that is so important. I always have liked to define vision it is standing in the now, but seeing the then. Dealing with the here, but knowing that this is not it. This is only temporary, because we understand that life itself, the very meaning of life is that life is changing. Life is flowing. One of the things I just so had a refresher of over this weekend is when I was holding my 5-month-old grandson, my first time seeing him in person. And I thought about it. When I looked at him and I'm like, goodness, he came here in June. When he came, I was in my recovery,
Yes.
And so I didn't get a chance to see him, but In those 5 months, he has changed. He looks different. He's getting bigger. I wasn't there in his 5 months, but it doesn't mean that I'm not part of his future. And that's what we have to understand when we're going through things at the current time. It is not the end, because you don't know who God have assigned ahead to intersect with you. And by the same token, you don't know whose assignment you are in somebody's life. So, before you ever think about checking out, you ought to check in and understand the fact that it ain't over yet, that you have reason to live. And I like to think about it this way here, because difficulties is part of life ingredients. We will have difficulties, we will have challenges, but if we're honest with ourselves, our challenges and difficulties do what? They help make us, they develop us, they give us depthness, they give us resilience. All those things come as a result of that. And if we can make up in our mind, the path to victory is the willingness and the determination to get to the other side. To get to the other side of this frustration, the other side of this setback, the other side of this problem, the other side of this disappointment. If I can make it to the other side, now I ask the question, but the reality is that I can. I can make it to the other side, but it requires me to continue to move, to keep going forward, Why would I want to rest here in the midst of my misery? Why would I want to stop here in the midst of my frustration? Why is it that I would want to camp out here in the midst of the wilderness of my life? No, if I can make it to the other side. And we've got to begin to believe there is another side. It is a place on the other side, even when it comes to things that have hurt us. And you and I have talked a lot about being able to get beyond the pain,
beyond the pain.
From pain to purpose and purpose to power. We have to be able to imagine in our mind, to see it in our mind's eye, myself on the other side of it. And I love it. Whatever we're going through, it cannot last. It did not come to stay. It only came to pass. And so when we say, and it came to pass, I stood triumphant, and it came to pass. The same person who was beaten down, the same person who was downtrodden, the same person who looked like they had nothing to live for is now living abundantly. Now is striving, because they refused to camp out in their misery. They was determined to get to the other side. And the path to victory includes that. It includes our self-talk. What are we saying to ourselves? What are we putting in the atmosphere? What is the message that we're telling the universe, if you would? Because that message there will be echoed. Once we speak it into existence, we're doing exactly what God did. He spoke it into existence. So once we put it out there, it begins to take on life. The etheric waves, we put it out there. And so therefore it begins to manifest the thing that we speak. And what we have to be determined about is watch what we say. Watch what we say. Begin to speak life, not death. Understanding whatever we nurture, that's what grows. Whatever we rehearse, that's what becomes more perfected. And that path to victory is so important in this day and time, because nobody's slowing up waiting on anybody anymore. You got to be determined.
Absolutely. I spoke about this weekend briefly, and I was saying to myself, I said, you know what? It's been a while since I've told my full story. And so I had shared bits and pieces of my story over the weekend. And I was like, God, you're so awesome. You're so magnificent, because, I forgot that I had a product called From Pain to Power.
Exactly right.
I forgot all about that until you were speaking and stuff. It said, I have accomplished so many things, and that pain and absence of love that I experienced over those years, it seems so far away because of where I am right now. There's no more hurting. There's no more pain. There's no more misery. There's no more trying to figure it out. It's already figured out. It's already worked out. But as I said, when you're in the midst of a storm, when you're going through a situation, it seems like you're the only one and that you will never, ever come out. It's like you will never, ever recover. But I'm here to tell you that, yes, there is sunshine on the other end. There is a higher road that you will get a chance to walk and enjoy the fullness of life. And I just thank God for purpose, because see, we don't know all that we are supposed to be. We figure it out along the way. And uh, Les was talking. Mike Williams has a book, The Road to Your Best Stuff. You don't know what your best stuff is
Exactly. You
until
know,
you walk that road, until you accomplish those things, until there's signs along the way that you read, right? And those
right.
signs along the way that you read are signs that'll help you get to where you have to go. Likewise with our lives, there are things that we have to go through along the way so that we can continue on our journey. And as we continue on our journey, there are supplies we gather along the way. We
Absolutely.
know, we need water to live. We need
Yes.
food to live.
Yes.
Well, these are things along the journey. We'll have spiritual food along the way. We'll have
Absolutely.
tangible food along the way. We'll have tangible liquids along the
Mhm.
way. And all of those fortify us to be who we are. Likewise with knowledge.
Exactly.
Likewise with experiences, they guide us along the way. These are trinkets that we pick up on that road and path to victory.
Absolutely. And the thing about it, on the road to victory, we cannot be afraid to stumble. We cannot be afraid to fail. I know people say, "Oh no, failure is terrible." There is no failure. They're just lessons. Those are it's lessons that we learn. I did not arrive to my expected conclusion in that moment, but it doesn't mean that I failed. It means that here's a lesson that I'm now learning. I need to understand that failure is not final inside of my life, because it is in my failure that I learned resiliency. In my failure, I learned the fact of how to get back up. In my failure is where my humility met my desires. In
Wow.
other words, because I didn't achieve what I wanted in that moment, in that space, I had to determine in my mind that this isn't it. This isn't, no, I'm not closing the book on my life here. No, this isn't it. I'm about to turn the page because there's another chapter that is ahead of me. And we have to understand the path to victory does not leave any room for us concluding that I can't make it, that I
Right.
won't make it. It only involves us being intentional, being deliberate, being cognizant of the fact that this isn't it.
This
I have
isn't
not
it.
arrived. Paul says in our favorite book, he says, I count not myself to have apprehended. And no, I haven't got it all. But this thing
We
I
don't
do,
have it all.
I'm forgetting those things that are behind me, because sometimes our greatest hindrance, our greatest trap is our history. It's the history
Mm.
of what we've done, the history of what we've experienced, the history of our failure, the history of folks around us that haven't done well. So our limitations are oftentimes framed and formed by our perception of ourselves and those around us. That's why you hear the saying that says, show me your 5 closest friends and I can show you your future. Why?
Mm.
Because you need to be around people that inspires, that people that are go-getters, people who are determined not to be buried. When I say buried, not to be buried, not to let dirt be poured on top of them. No, you've got to understand that your path to victory cannot happen without you being determination. And determination is the greatest nation in all the world. Being
Mm.
determined to get to where you're going, being determined to put one foot in front of the other. And what I discovered, the only limitations that we have is the ones that we put on ourselves. When we conclude that this is it, when we conclude that I can never do this. No, I might not can never do that this way, but
Hmm.
that's where the resiliency comes in, because there's another route, there's another way. And sometimes it is just a simple following the signs. I was never good at following recipes for a long time. Don't consider myself real good at it now. But what I determined is that somewhere along the line, my early failure made me afraid to try again.
Hmm.
And as long as I held on to that fear of trying, I would never explore it. I would never return back to the kitchen. I would never return to do any of that. Why? Because I allowed an incident, I allowed an outcome in a particular moment to define and determine how I looked at a particular situation, how I looked at doing certain things. But when I understand that I must give myself one more time, another opportunity, one more again, as the old folks would say, is that I have to be able to give it another try. I must be able to move another step forward, because sometimes when we are willing to make the sacrifice to keep moving, what we're looking for is on the other side of where we are. And we've got to be determined to get to the other side.
Absolutely, Dr. J. So many people are still mourning the losses that they've suffered these last 2 years. People that
Yes.
left here that you would have had no thought or envision being here without them by our sides. And they're having problems shifting. And, we always say that God doesn't make mistakes, even though we don't understand, but He's
Right.
yet faithful in all things. And then some would say, well, if it is a God, why did He allow certain things to happen? And then I remember in the book of books where, when King Uzziah died, then Isaiah said that that's when he saw the Lord. A lot of times we can't see the path or where we need to go because we're consumed with those around us.
Exactly. And that's something that we have to be able to overcome. What I discover is that too often we're looking for others' affirmation.
Hmm.
We're looking for others' approval. We're looking for others to say good job. We're looking for others to affirm who we are. And there's nothing wrong with it, that there's a human desire to be affirmed, but we cannot depend on it in order to keep forward. That cannot be your fuel. That cannot be what drives you. What drives you must be intentional and internal, and the fact that it comes from the inside out, not from the outside in.
Mm-hmm,
That's where
mm-hmm.
inspiration is. Inspiration and motivation is something that drives you from the inside and causes you to move forward. And when we begin to move forward and we understand the fact that going forward, everyone is not going to throw you a ticker tape parade. No, you won't have one. You won't have one. But what you can determine in your mind is that I'm going to celebrate every victory. I'm going to celebrate that I'm no longer where I was. I'm going to celebrate that I've come to a place that as now I look back just to see how far I've come, I can honestly say that I was able to put one foot in front of the other. I was able to believe against all odds. I was able to enter into a space that I thought was forbidden to me. And the thing that makes the door stand open when we talk about the path to victory is the ability to believe that I can get there, the ability to believe
That you
that
can
I
get
belong there. And those things are most important.
there. I was thinking this weekend, my grandfather has been gone for almost 35 years.
Wow.
And this weekend, I thought about him and I
Wow.
thought about the lessons that he taught me along the way.
Yes.
Um, and one of the things he used to say to me is little girl, you need to stand upright.
Look at
Don't
there.
you don't walk slouch down.
Yes.
And person made a comment to me this weekend that said, you walk like with such authority. And
Yeah.
that reminded me of my grandfather because he said to me, he says, little girl, you need to stand up straight because you're not going to be very tall. He says, you're not going to be very tall. So make sure whatever you do, you walk upright.
Yes.
And and I remembered that, and it brings me back to thinking about those that have lost people along the way. Remember the nuggets they left with you.
Exactly.
Remember the
Exactly.
encouragement that they gave you along the way. Remember the memory of how wonderful they are. And that will help you get to the next level because guess what? Those love nuggets that they gave you was because they believed in you.
Absolutely.
They believed in you. They saw greater for you. And a lot of times although we don't know how great we'll be, there's other people that believe in us and see
Absolutely.
us along further than we are. We just have to take hope. Just like my daughter Latoya, when she was living here in Fort Lauderdale, she couldn't see herself nowhere else but here,
Right.
but she was thrusted out and she moved to another state and she had to find her footing. And guess
Yes.
what? She's walking upright. She says, Mama, it's like I was supposed to be here.
Wow.
Everything that I envisioned or that God spoke over my life is coming to fruition. I'm
Yes.
in my God appointed place. And that's how you're going to be when you allow yourself to grow. Individuals are not allowing themselves to expand, they're staying stuck in that box because of the fact that they're afraid that if they peep out of that box or look out of that window, that greatness is on the other side, and they may not know how to handle the greatness that's supposed to come their way. They may not be able to handle that love that someone wants to pour in and share their lives with. So don't be afraid. Fear keeps us back from so many different things. Don't be
Absolutely.
afraid. Don't be weary. Don't get stuck in a box where you won't be able to flourish and allow someone to see the greatness that you have. Because guess what? When you flourish, just like there's fruit on the trees, right?
Yes.
That's because that tree has flourished. And there's somebody that's going to pick that fruit and eat it. That's part of you flourishing. So that's part of the nuggets that you're going to sprinkle along the way. Be that tree that pours into somebody's life, that'll be their
Yes.
lifeline, be that food that they need for nourishment. They're
Ah.
waiting on your voice. They are waiting on you to
Mhm.
come forward. That's
Mhm.
what the path of victory is. Even if it's even if your journey is for one purpose, that
Yes.
is your path to victory. For one person, that is your path to victory.
Well, you know what, Dr. Val, you said something that's so important, in that sometimes we don't see the significance we can play in the lives of others. We
Mhm.
don't. We discount ourselves. But our foreparents didn't have that problem. See, our foreparents, oftentimes without the education, without all these thrills and frills that we have, they could see beyond the moment. They could
Mhm.
see where they were. They could see where life was taking them. They could see that there was a better road up ahead. And so they did not discount what they could believe based upon what was present in their life. As a matter of fact, that's the reason they could encourage us, because they believed that there was a better tomorrow. They believed that possibility was there. And so rather than looking at life as being I am possible, meaning I possibly am possible, they saw it as I am possible. I am possible. I am possible to succeed. I am possible to excel. I'm possible. So when I look at my seed, when I look at my children and my children's children, I believe because I can see in them what they might not can even see in themselves. And those
Mhm.
are the nuggets. And that's why I say it's a two-way street in life, because on one end, you're the receiver, but on the other end, you're the giver. I like to call it grace walk. The grace walkers
I
are the
like
people
that.
that we've received grace. And so therefore we give grace. We understand what it's like. We know what it's like to not have. We know what it's like to be short. We know what it's like. And I'm not talking about in stature. We know what it's like to have lack. And because we've gone through that path, because we understand situations that may precipitate these things happening, we are more sympathetic and empathetic for those that are going through in their current moment. But by the same token, we remain inspirational because we've been there. We know what that path leads to. We know that if you're willing to walk this path, victory is there. If you're
Mhm.
willing to excel beyond right now. In other words, if you're willing to not allow the pen to say this is the end of me, but rather saying this is simply the end of this chapter. I'm moving on to the next chapter of my life. When you talk about your daughter Toya, she moved to a different chapter and different space
Chapter.
in her
Mhm.
life. And sometimes there are situations and circumstances that we face that will cause us to get out of our comfort zone, because sometimes we can get stuck inside of comfort
Yes.
and conveniences and familiarity, and those things there becomes those mechanisms that lures us to sleep, and we feel comfortable, and we have a safety valve here, and we have a life raft here, and we have all of those things there, and yet it's still purpose is saying no from your familiar. I need to move you from your comfort. I need to cause some things to happen in your life. And guess what? You might not want to do so. And matter of fact, most of us are going to be resistant to it. And sometimes we'll start out, and when it becomes the wind begin to blow against our face, we want to turn around. We want to take another path. But when you're in alignment with your assignment, let me say something. Listen, your internal GPS will reroute you. Say, no, reroute. Why? Because like, I've got to get you to your destination. And I believe that's what life is about. When we recognize this, when we start off with hope, when we start off with joy, when we start off with anticipation, when we start off with a perspective in, we have to ask ourselves a question: what is it that we would allow to stop that from being?
Mm-hmm.
We don't see children allow things to stop them. Children are big dreamers. They believe that everything is achievable. And then life hits.
Yes.
Stale people, folks who have been burnt by their own experiences, people who have yielded to setbacks and said, look, I could never do this again. But when you recognize the power to begin again begins with you making up in your mind, being cognizant and conscious of the fact that I am beginning again. Watch this. And I don't have to be ashamed. I don't have to apologize to anyone for having to start over again. Starting over again is a good thing, a good thing. New light, new mercies, new graces. And that is what life is all about. The path to victory is understanding this, that I will not lose confidence in where I'm going. I will not lose faith along the way. My confidence is not going to be, if you would, framed by my circumstances. Rather, my confidence is framed by my unrelentless hope. I believe in a place called hope. And that's what we have to do if we're going to get to victory.
That is absolutely correct. You know, as I said earlier, I talked about the elections, and, you know, there were some victories there and there were some losses, but no one lost. No one lost, because those opponents that didn't win or get their seat, guess what? Millions of people know who they are. So they are. And guess what? Because they ran, that person that did win, the fire is up underneath them.
Yes.
Because they're going to have to show up, and they're going to have to be able to do what it is that they said they're going to do. So no, there were no winners in this election. Everyone won, because those that lost, everybody knows who they are. And the one that won, their feet is going to be to the fire, because they know they're going to have to perform. They're going to have to do what they said they're going to do in order for them to succeed, to be able to be reelected again. And one, that's just like it is with us. We fail our way to success. Sometimes it don't work out. We go through marriages, and we think it's to death do us part. We be up there, we smiling and gleaming, and go to the honeymoon and come back and think everything is going to be love every day. No, reality sets in. Y'all going to have to pay bills. Then you, if you start a family, you're going to have children. And a lot of times your vision changes when someone else comes in your life. Your perspective changes, and you're going to have to work out, can you love beyond what you see? Can you love beyond the circumstances? So a shift happens, a shift occurs. And that's why individuals, either they make it or they don't during marriages, or if you're dating, it doesn't mean that you're not lovable. Let's make that clear. It has nothing to do with that. It means that perspectives have changed, because there's but so much you can learn about individuals during a dating process. I will actually tell you that I know more people that survive marriages that have known each other shorter.
And it's interesting, right? And that's an interesting thing that you say. And it goes back to where we started. When we look at journeys in life, we're not all, and we have to say, life changes us. Life changes us. Our experiences changes us. And then our appetite changes as life go on.
Yes, our appetites, yes. They do change.
So when we get to a certain place in life, there's certain time that our tolerance for a certain thing is no longer there. Yes. And then also our need, if we're doing a need assessment, I don't need at 50 what I needed at 20. Right. I don't need at 50 what I needed at 30. And so because my needs have changed, I don't look at life through the same lens. You know, when you've gotten on the other side of that 50 and you start thinking about, you know, what is it that I need? You know, first of all, I know I'm not preparing for no new babies to come along. So, so I don't have to look at that. That's not in my perspective. I don't have to talk about where the best place to buy diapers and stuff. No, I don't. I have to also understand that by the same token, there's a sense that I've been established now. And inside of my establishment, one of my greatest lessons is to learn how to share, how to balance and work with someone else. Because there
Yeah.
is security in your own stuff. There's some security in the fact of that which you have established. And so if I'm going to be joined with you, I've got to be willing to share. And so the sharing part is where the real test is, because the sharing part says this: do I trust you?
Right.
Am I willing to trust you with that which I have worked hard to establish? But remember, that's a twofold question, because the other person has to determine the same thing. So don't think this over with. Understand there are adjustments. People sometimes don't have to date forever, and they are the ones who actually make it. They make it because of the fact they're shifting of perspectives and what they're willing to do. Because it
Mhm.
is, you got to go, you got to rock with it, you got to roll with it, you got to be able to bend with it. Because of the fact, that's what life is all about.
Right.
I'm not looking for my way out. I'm looking for my way in. I'm not looking to jump out. I'm looking to jump in. How do we make this thing work, flourish, get to where we need to? And that's what we got to be willing to do. And once again, it goes back to self-talk, your perspective of your own life, your perspective of self. There are some people that are frustrated with themselves. There are
Hmm.
some people who are upset with themselves. There are people who have magnified their failure so large that they wouldn't know a good thing if it sat on their lap. They wouldn't know it because they have magnified everything that's been wrong and have not even been able to reimagine what is right. And we've got to be able to move beyond that. And people will hold you prisoner, but it's nothing like when you hold yourself prisoner.
Ooh, yes. Say it, Dr.
Yes.
J.
When you hold your own self prisoner, that's the worst. You're the worst warden in the world. You're the worst prison guard in the world because you hold yourself prisoner. You hold yourself in that position. And when you hold yourself there, you don't allow for anything to come in. You don't allow for sunshine to come in. You don't allow for you don't even allow for a compliment to come in. I've seen women that are so intimidated. They've been hurt so bad and they've had such bad experiences that they cannot even take a genuine compliment. They
Hmm.
cannot even take a genuine, how are you doing? I don't want to talk to you. And, well, I don't want to talk to you either. I just was speaking, because that's been their experience. But I tell you, I come to a conclusion that every day is a fresh day. It's a new morning. It's a new day. I am not tied to my yesterday. My
Ooh,
yesterday
that's a
is
good one.
gone. It's gone. I refuse to allow anyone to convict me on my yesterday
Hmm.
because yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but
Mm.
today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And why would I forfeit all that I have and the possibility of having in the present because of what have happened in the past? No, the past ain't paying no rent.
Mm.
Past ain't paying no mortgage. So live in the present. Understand the fact that once again, forgetting those things that are behind me, looking forward to what those things that are before me. In the path to victory, I press. Where am I pressing? Toward a mark. There's a goal. There is a destination. I press toward that. I'm
Hmm.
pressing toward that. Why? Because that is my destination. That is where I'm going. And if I'm willing to go there, believe me, victory awaits me.
Hmm. Staying on this subject of relationship, I just feel led to keep talking about this part, Dr. J. Because, my dear sisters, you say you want husbands, but are you really, really wanting a husband? The reason why some want husbands is because they're saying, I'm tired of going out by myself. I'm tired of doing this by myself, but they haven't cleaned out their closet. They haven't cleaned out their closet emotionally, mentally, nor physically.
Wow.
So there's baggage that needs to be dispersed because guess what? You meeting a man and going out to the movies and going out to dinner and say, oh, I'm in love. But then when you walk down that aisle and you go home and realize they not going home, they staying there. They're not going anywhere.
Wow.
Are you prepared for that?
Yeah.
And a lot of individuals, men and women, aren't prepared for that. They're caught up in the moment, in the
Yeah.
emotion of love, because marriages work.
Hmm.
Fortunately for me, I
Hmm.
cleaned out the clutter before I got married because of the fact that things don't matter to me anymore. I don't care about shopping. I don't care about all I care about is coming home to my husband and we doing what if I'm out, I'm working and I come home it is delightful to have someone to say, how was your day? And did
Yeah.
everything go okay? And that's it. He's not in the industry, don't care about the industry. He just cares about me. So when you are able to be in a relationship with someone that you can form a lifetime commitment with that just loves you for you, not what you have, not what you can do for them, but because all of that's going to fade. Somebody's going to lose their teeth. Somebody's
Yeah.
going to lose their hair and can't throw on
Yeah.
a wig. And somebody can't, the
Isn't that
gray
the
is
truth?
going to
Praise God.
gray
Yes.
is going to show. It's a lot of things that are going to happen along this path, this journey, especially if you're a certain age. But even young people are going through situations in their marriage because life has happened to them. But can you ride out that storm? It's better to be alone than to wish you were.
Exactly.
So think about the end game or what it is that you're trying to do when it comes to a relationship, when you're thinking about marriage. There's a lot of ladies in waiting for, been waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
And they want that perfect person and think it's going to be romance every day, and it is not.
No. No. For one thing, it is adaptation. Adapting to someone else's routine.
Yes,
Adapting to
that's
someone
what that's what I was trying to say. So thank you for
else.
spreading that out. Are you able to adapt to somebody else in your space? So go ahead, Dr. J. Go ahead.
Right. So it's adaptation to someone else's routines, adaptation to people proclivities for certain things. Uh, you know, adaptation to even people's idiosyncrasy, and it goes both ways. Inside of it, we have to determine what are deal breakers. You know, I
Mm.
can. You know, I could be. I could be annoyed by a fly or a gnat, but I don't go and get a 9 millimeter to get rid of them. I
Yes.
can't stand that because it's not that serious. So I learned to adapt. I learned to understand that there are certain things that are not worth it. It's not worth the fight. It's not worth the argument. It's not worth disturbing the peace. And there's another thing that we often say: we have to determine sometime whether are we choosing to be right or we choosing to be happy.
Mm. Hmm.
And so oftentimes what we lose inside a relationship, especially I find out when you've lived life. Because everybody, when you start talking, you want to go to those points that what I'm not going to do, and I went through this with that one and the other. Here's the thing that is so important to keep in mind: we have to understand this. We have to learn how to have discussions, conversation. What we do is that oftentimes we bring over the residual, the baggage from past experience. And so
Right.
guess what? Man, we anticipate an argument and sometimes we will even invoke one. Why? Nobody gonna do it. I promised myself I wasn't gonna let anybody talk to me or do it. And so we get to there go the argument. We get to arguing. The goal is not to argue. Watch this. Because when we arguing, we're trying to prove who's right.
Right.
Discussion, we prove what's right. Argument, I'm right. No, I'm right. I'm right. Who's right?
Mhm.
Discussion, we come to a conclusion. What's right? What's right for the moment? what's right for this situation, what's right for our union, what's right for us right now.
Yes.
And if we can ever get to the point where it's not a matter of me having one up on you and I'm counting how many times that I'm right, because see, what good would it be for me to be right all the time, but I'm in an unhappy situation?
Okay, from a man perspective, Dr. J,
Mm-hmm.
what, let me see how I can say this. What is it that you would look for at this dispensation of your life?
Well, I think there's three major areas I look for. I look for a person who's adaptable. And inside of adaptability, an individual that is willing to be able to, like I said, to rock with me, to roll with me, to begin to understand how to bend with me, to not come to the conclusion, this ain't going to work or this is wrong. No, no. Trust me here. Your support will mean a lot. Adaptability. The second part is definitely someone who is passionate and affectionate. A person who has no passion, who has no drive, can do very little to motivate you. Hello. No. I can't be with someone who's like watching paint dry. It does nothing for you.
Mm-hmm.
The one who pours out a lot, like we give a lot, we pour out a
Right.
lot. Our whole lives is about pouring out, pouring out. So the reason why I talk about passion and affection, because I have to have someone who's have the capacity to pour
Stimulate.
into me and to stimulate, to pour back into me, because guess what? I need to. Sometimes I have to be refueled. I have to be recharged. And we all need to. And the third thing, and I want to make sure I put this in capacity in the word is, a person whose love doesn't have a stop sign.
Ooh, that's powerful.
And whose
Yeah.
love doesn't have a stop sign. No, be willing to truly fall in love. And we need to be like Alice in Wonderland, fall in love and understand, listen, that I'm not looking for the bottom of it.
Hmm.
No, no. And that goes back to the adaptability of those things. Because when you're in that type of mind, you can be imaginative, you're creative, you understand this is it. Things that I may have failed at before, it may be the right time for me to succeed right now. See, the person who have given up on dreams and given up on the possibility of love, oftentimes it's because it's an accumulation of hurts. It's an
Right.
accumulation of bad experiences. It is a far too deep remembrance of all the things that was wrong, and it has drained the life out of you, and now
Mhm.
you don't even have a hope for that which is right. I'm about the lessons I've learned. There
Wow.
is no
Too.
failure, there's only lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this: the person who gets me will get the best version of who I've ever been, because of the life lessons that I've learned, the things that I'm more clear of than ever before,
Mm-hmm.
the wisdom that have come from both lived experience and that's come from, if you would, practical hands-on life. And that's what makes it different. It's one thing to have a fantasy, but if your fantasy is not rooted and grounded in a sense of possibility, in a sense of understanding that it's the strong that survive, in the sense of understanding the power of discipline, then all you're doing is fooling yourself. Because I
Right.
believe this is that life is always bringing us to a place of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline. People accomplish whether it's weight loss or goals because of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
It's discipline. You know, it was Jim Rome who said in life that we will all face two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The
Mm.
difference is that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. So we can be willing to be disciplined and deal with the sweat that amounts to ounces, or we can choose to be undisciplined and deal with the weight of the tons that's on our shoulder because we have resorted to living a life that basically is woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to reside there. That I don't want to live in woulda, shoulda, coulda-ville, and I definitely don't want to continue to perpetuate an unrealistic truth to myself. One day I'll. No, that's not a nice place in the Pacific. And one day I'll. No, one day I'll is the greatest procrastination tool. My one day I'll begins right now. I begin to move once again toward that path of victory.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so many people start out doing well. I
Mm-hmm.
told the analogy a couple of shows ago about, because I was raised in New York, and there's a George Washington Bridge. Imagine
Yes.
walking over that bridge. That bridge is a couple of miles long. If you walk, and it's even double that.
Wow.
Imagine walking over that bridge and you get halfway there and you be like, I just can't go no further. This is crazy. But if you turn around in the middle, if you turn around in the middle, you have wasted just as much time going backwards
Yeah.
instead of going to the other side where you
Yeah.
should be in the first place. So
Right.
why not keep going? And that's
Absolutely.
how our journey is, our path is. Why keep looking back, start over again, looking back, go forward. If you've been through a divorce, that's all right. Don't look back, go forward.
Yes.
If you lost some loved ones,
Yes.
don't look back, go forward.
Yeah.
If you lost businesses, don't worry. Start again, go forward, because turning back is just as much energy. When you get back to the other side, that energy, you'll be so wore out from going back and then having to start again. It's like, wow, I should have just kept on going because there's nothing behind me. I already left back what was behind me. So may as well go forward. That's how life is. You got to keep pressing forward because that's where the victory, that's where the prize is. There's someone waiting for you on the other side.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And we keep coming back to that whole thing about getting to the other side. What a powerful analogy there. Because the thing about it, I know what's behind me, or do I know what's in front of me?
People
See,
fear the unknown.
right. So sometimes it's that fear of the unknown. But I love that analogy when you get to that place and now you're in the middle and
In
you're
the
looking
middle.
at it, and wow, man, you said, man, this bridge, and you can determine this. Do I go back or do I go forward? Now there's a woman who's married to a man named Lot. Just when victory was ahead of them, just when a way out was ahead of them, just when there was a new opportunity and a new life ahead of them, and just when they was escaping and the door was open for them to leave, and they're going, and she became preoccupied by what was behind her, and she looked back, and that was the last look she had.
Mm.
I believe that we have to determine in our mind that where God is calling us to is greater than where He's calling us from. Where
Hmm.
He is pulling us and where He's drawn us to is greater than where He is calling us from. In other words, I believe that my future is better. I do believe that my greater days is yet in front of me. I do believe that my future is greater than my past. I believe that the rest of my life will be the best of my life. That is what I've determined inside of. Listen, if you thought I was something in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, you haven't seen that thing yet, man. We're shifting gears, and I believe that what's for me is greater than that which I've had. My latter shall be greater than
It's
my former
greater than my.
because I'm willing to allow my former to be my former.
Woo, well said, Dr. J. We're almost out of time, so I want you to tell individuals how they can connect with you. You know, we always have guests on our show, and we're always
Yeah.
promoting people and their things. They have their products and services, and we always forget about ourselves. We always run out of time. So
Yeah.
tonight is you and I talking, and those of you that are tuning in, I thank you so much for always joining in Hot Topics from the Soul and giving your comments. I appreciate you so much, and we want to ask that you share the show with someone, and hopefully we've given some nuggets to someone that will help you along the way.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage and invite people, go to our website, jrthicklin.com. That's jrthicklin.com. There you will find some things about us. And understand that we are available speaking both whether to corporate America, whether we're speaking to civic groups, or whether we're speaking to faith groups, or whether we're speaking to places in healthcare. There's a message there inside of being not only a subject matter expert, is understanding that common denominator that we all have, and that is a thing called hope. And when hope is watered, and when hope begins to be nurtured, it grows, and it grows into possibilities. Hope will slap the I in the M from in front of the word and leaves you with just possible. It is possible. My hope made way for my possibility.
Amen. Thank you so much for that, Dr. J. And you can reach out to me at from thesoulawoman.com, from thesoulawoman.com, and my email is soultopics@gmail.com. So thank you so much for tuning in to another Hot Topics from the Soul. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Hot Topics from the Soul. Subscribe to Hot Topics from the Soul. This has been a good night. I thank you all for tuning in, as I said, and there is a path to victory. Don't abort your journey.
Absolutely.
Do
Absolutely.
not abort your journey. There's someone waiting for you on the other end.
Absolutely. Been waiting. Everything that you've been going through, they've been prepared to be that the other side of it. They've been prepared to answer that. Even as you and I are created, and we're created and put here in earth to be able to solve problems, to be able to answer things. You never know when you're going to be an answer to somebody's prayer, an answer to someone's
Somebody's
situation. And you got to understand, and you are, just when you think that you have nothing to offer, I need you to understand that you have everything to offer, because
everything.
you did not go through what you've gone through for naught. Once again, I don't care what your current situation looks like. Whatever you're going through, it cannot last. It didn't come to stay. It only came to pass. Listen here, my problems did not even sign a lease because they know they had to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in. Good night and God bless. This has been another Hot Topics from the Soul.
God bless.